Hi guys, I'm Danny, and I started a Sunday Jam because I've noticed lately that people tend to go to colleges and universities without actually knowing why they're there. And afterwards, starting jobs that are unfulfilling. So I'm interviewing different professionals to see what they have to say and share their knowledge and experience with you. I hope you enjoy it. Right on, John. Thanks for being with me, sir. How are you doing today?
Very good. Good to meet you, Denny.
Well, good to meet you too. The program will be focused on three main questions. What do you do for a living? How did you get there? How did you know that this was the way to go? So that's what you do for a living, please.
Okay, so what I do is I run a cybersecurity firm. What we do is we provide security services for small, medium-sized businesses, usually in the regulated sectors. We help them secure themselves and then protect themselves from attacks and basically going out of business. And so there's a couple aspects to it. There's the technology aspect where we have engineers that put in all the technical controls that help them. Then we also help these businesses comply with cyber regulations, which are becoming an increasing issue within the U.S. and also in Europe as well.
Yeah.
Um, and so the way we got involved in it is I was previously I had a career in the FBI, and myself and my co-founder uh, we did cyber investigations and technology development for the FBI. And one of our duties, sometimes we had to go out and notify victims that they had had a data breach. And in some cases, they didn't know what to do, how to respond. And we saw firsthand how this would put some of these smaller businesses out of business, like a title insurance company that does real estate closings. They built it up over 20 years and they had a data breach, lost all their customer information, and went out of business. And seeing firsthand the owner crying because of this issue, that was really the genesis of why we started the company and how we got involved in cybersecurity services. Um, and we've been kind of building the business ever since then.
No, that's amazing. Not to mention it's ridiculously dangerous. Um, so for a while I worked at Hewlett Packard and now I'm in another international company. It's pretty big. And we're dealing with this on a month. No, you know what? Forget it. My team's been dealing is dealing on this on a monthly basis. And we're
Yeah,
like huge. And so the fact that I know about this, I'm seeing it every month. It's pretty much make it at least daily, maybe a
yeah,
couple times a day. And if you really aren't secure, you're going to have a lot of problems. You will have a lot of trouble with that. This is tremendously, I don't even know what to compare. I suppose having a bodyguard, but not quite. It's actually even more important because, well, at least, on a good day, you may be able to spot the assassin. Not here though.
yeah. Yeah, and this for us, educating small, medium-sized businesses, like their leadership of how important it is. A lot of times people think, if you're a business leader, you think, well, it's an IT issue. The IT department's taking care of it. I got a good IT team, and that's not the case. I mean,
Are the
it's
keys in your
not.
pockets security issue or something?
Yeah, and so it's we've got to make them realize that the worst case scenario is this puts you out of business, and so you don't worry about you wouldn't hand that over to someone else just that you don't even know to make sure your business is safe. And so part of it is educating them and then helping them, realize that you can be secured without having to become a security expert and taking that off their plate. So but the smaller businesses, they're the most vulnerable, but they probably have the least protection as well.
Yeah. Got a bit of a side question here.
Sure.
I know it sounds as a critique, but it really isn't because that's not the point of my program. I'm not trying to critique people. I'm just, curious. It's 2026. I don't think people need a lot of education to realize what a huge risk this is. So I suppose are you actually doing that much education about this?
I I think yes. I mean,
Interesting.
everyone knows about cybersecurity. They know about hacks and things like that. I think there is a still business leaders that think the problem's being handled, or that it's not, or it's just not something that they need to be concerned with. And I think the education focus is more like if you are a business leader, you run a company, you look at different metrics like your financial health, your hiring, your compliance, things like that.
Yeah.
Oftentimes they don't look at what their cybersecurity risk is, and that's the one that can kind of gobble them up from one day to the next. It can go from a good day to you're shut down overnight. And unlike these other things that they monitor and look at, they can kind of get an idea of a trend of when something's trending bad. But if they're not looking at their cybersecurity risk, then they have no idea what their exposure is. So that's really, yeah, they know they've heard about it. They know that there's things out there, but they never really focus the attention on it. So I guess it's more than just education. It's like, hey, this is something
Yeah.
you really need to look at and do something about.
No, I get it. You mentioned also regulations. Honestly, I don't know if we have a lot of those in the European Union, but can you highlight a few examples?
Well, examples are if companies work in regulated industries, for example, like finance, healthcare, or energy, there are generally frameworks and controls that they're required to follow and comply with, and they can be subject to government audits or regulation
Okay.
if to make sure that they have the right programs in place. There's also a privacy aspect as far as protecting customer information, such as in the European Union, there's GDPR, which
Yeah.
anyone that handles customer information that's private, they have to have certain safeguards in place. If they don't and they lose that information, they could be subject to some really significant fines. So it's regulations that they really have to follow in order to limit their liability if they do have a data breach.
It is serious. Although that's a serious topic, I like to bring a smile every now and then. We do deserve that. And I want to tell you a story. I think it was from 2024, 2023. I don't remember, but it was pretty recently. So we have, like every country in the EU has this accountant agency that's mostly handling the pension funds, right? I
Mm-hmm.
don't know how to explain it in US terminology. I'm sure you guys have that here, right? So that one was hacked, and the data of every senior citizen was pretty much stolen,
Mm-hmm.
which is horrible. And the chief accountant at the agency, I don't know how old she was, but she was around 420, 450 years old back. And she gave an interview. She said, I can neither confirm nor deny that that happened, but I can guarantee you that we looked into it. That's a real story. I'm not making it up. I can guarantee you that we looked at the cameras and no hacker was inside the building. No, I can't believe she actually said that. But
Yeah.
that's a real story. Some people should not be in those fields. That's my point.
Yeah. Well, and that kind of illustrates it's not just a technology problem. It's a leadership problem. Like something like that happens. Who do you talk to? How do you address your customers? How do you communicate that? Because if a data breach happens and you lose all your customer information, how you navigate through that as a company is not just the technology and cleaning up the system. It's also that you have to notify your customers. You may have to notify the government, and how you message that can make a big difference on how that what the damage is afterwards. Because in the United States, um, there's a lot more litigation that's occurring from these data breaches where a class action lawsuit would happen. And so, like, if a company's kind of nonchalant of the way that they address it, if they're not honest
Yeah.
about it, it can cause more litigation and more damage to them than just the data breach.
Yeah, fair enough. John, my third question is, how did you knew that this was the way to go? And you're a tremendously interesting case. You highlighted the FBI and what you were doing before. That's fine. You highlighted the noble cause that you're pursuing, which is amazing, as I already said. Hmm. However, Now, obviously, you being from that specific agency, and maybe agencies, I don't know, it means that you have a certain mindset. That's
Hmm.
very important, especially in the field that you are. And you obviously, you're a person that is able to highlight a problem and to figure out how to deal with it. Now, another thing that I was never really okay with, and that's about people like you and people with, from the police. At the end of the day, you're just a guy, pretty much
Hmm.
like me, well, with more expertise in a certain area, but in the end of the day, just a man.
Right.
And for some reason, and that's going in the States, it's the same in Russia, in the European Union, everywhere. You know, when something happens, and something always happens, like, well, those guys didn't do their job. They did. They did
Hmm.
their best. And in almost every other service, because I'm in finance, right? I make mistakes. And when I do, I'm just saying that I did my best and I did. And people are like, you know what, Danny? Yeah, you did your best, man. You get them next time.
Hmm.
You, doctors, police officers, you guys don't have that luxury. And you never will. It's how the world is. It's not the United States. It's not Europe. That's how people are.
Hmm.
And you are very aware of that. I'm certain. You don't even have to confirm it. Now, being in the cybersecurity business, that's yeah, you can say it's an office job, but it's not easier than what you were doing. You were an adult and you fully understood what you were getting into, and yet you chose to do it. And this is why I'm asking you, why did you went there? Because a lot of times, and as I've said before, I'm not against universities. I don't hate universities or colleges. I know I haven't verified it because I didn't have time and just didn't get to it. But I know from my guess that there are student loans or whatever you have there. I don't get the concept. It doesn't really matter, but it's not about the money. I'm sure that you've lost money at some point. I have lost money. We're losing friendships. We're gaining new friendships, but we're losing the old ones. Relationships, it's part of life. But when you lose time, that's serious because you can't get it back. Not only that, at some point you end up as a around 25-year-old young man or young woman. You have a piece of paper that almost, not always, of course, but almost doesn't mean anything. Often they're getting the first option they have. That's not
Hmm.
for them. So you either end up with a degree that really wasn't for you, it's not going to bring you anything, or you end up with a degree that you're just not made for this, and you start a job, it makes you miserable. Now, if you're miserable on your own, that's bad, but you can live that way. But let's say you have a spouse, children, how long can you lie to yourself? Not very long. Look at all the amazing, beautiful, ridiculously talented actors we have. How many of them have normal lives? I don't know about many of them.
Right.
And that's a solid problem. And this is actually the problem I'm trying to address. And again, back to your case, obviously smart, focused, intelligent person, an adult at that time with a lot of experience. You could have chosen a lot of other professions. You could have chosen even something that was, pretty easy, but you didn't. Why?
I think one of the things is I've always been gravitated towards technical work. I enjoy the engineering or building things, and so in this case, it's technical. It's building. I think one of the things I like is building a business and building something from the ground up. And I think from my experiences in the FBI, leading people, and then trying to build something that's similar with developing a culture, bringing in people, taking care of them, as far as, developing a good talent pool and taking care of workers and developing that environment is something that I like to do. I think that's nothing that I really thought I wanted to do when I, graduated from college way back when. But through my experiences during my career, that's really what I wanted to do. And I think, we always get to a certain point where, I'd worked for a couple large organizations through my career. I really wanted to start my own business and run my own shop. And I think one of the things that I've learned, um, it's not necessarily so much the work that you do. You can have the best work in the world, but if you're surrounded with people that you don't like or that aren't really easy to work with, it can make the best job in the world horrible. An example is I took a job with a cybersecurity startup after I retired from the FBI, um, and moved to Texas I was fully engaged in trying to make this a success. But it was just a really bad environment, as far as um, just, just, I think one of the things that I really value is taking care of the people around you, and building a team. And it was very cutthroat in this small company, and I was making more money than I ever had been, but I was absolutely miserable. I dreaded going to work on Monday. And when I heard the company's name, I had like a visceral reaction, like, oh. And so I think when I got to that point after a few months, I realized I can't stay here and I can't do this. And it's really because and you kind of feel like, well, I'm failing at what I signed up to do.
Yeah,
But I think, you talked about wasting time.
yeah,
It's like and that's what made me realize I need to leave is I can't really see, I don't want to invest the effort because I don't believe in what they're doing. I don't believe in this organization. And so if you don't believe in the mission or the culture or the company, it may be time to look somewhere else.
yeah,
And so I think one of we talk about, that I think there's sayings that like, well, if you enjoy your job, you never work a day in your life. Well, any job you have to work. There's ups and downs. But I think, first finding work that you enjoy and really find engaging, that passion, then also those organizations that you like to work with. As far as, do you enjoy spending time with those people? If it's not a supportive culture, then it's probably sometimes to shift gears. So I think it's more than just work. I think it's also like the environment you're working in.
yeah. I'd like to respectfully challenge that in a way. The world is very dynamic. It
Mm-hmm.
has never been as dynamic as it is right now. And because I've been in that situation a few times, and I know exactly what you're talking about. We had like a really good team. Yeah, like really good team. And here, when a woman gets pregnant, she takes between 2 and 3 years of maternity leave. So that's quite a time.
Right.
We have to take someone, to fill the spot. And sometimes, the HR is busy, the management is busy, and they hire people on resume, and they don't really, check how those people are in general, because it's important to have a certain set of skills, right?
Right.
But it's equally important not to be a total douche.
Right.
So yeah, and when that happened, we have that saying here to a barrel of honey, a spoon of poison is more than enough. You
Mm-hmm.
just destroy the whole thing. And
Right.
yeah, I get that. So it's not about whether you like the job or the team, because the team is pretty flexible.
Mm-hmm.
And when that happened, like two guys are getting out of that team, and another girl is, pregnant now, so she'll be on maternity cover for like 2, 3 years. So by the time the first person returns, it's almost not of the original team.
Yeah. So your team's always going to change.
Yeah.
But I think the culture of the team sort of remains constant. Well, I guess it's hard
The
to say.
people
I
make
mean,
the
it
culture.
just it really depends on how big the organization is and
Yeah.
how it is. And so I think smaller organizations are probably a little bit more dynamic as far as
Yeah.
their overall culture where it changes. Large organizations that have a larger swath of people,
Yeah.
generally they probably are fall into a certain mold. And I think one of the things is like that. situation I was talking about is I could find ways to, in my previous positions, I could find ways to work around, you can work around the asshole. Because it
Yeah.
was big enough where like, well, this person's not going to help
I'm
me,
using that.
but I could go in a different direction. Whereas if you're surrounded by them,
Yeah.
then there's really not much you can do. So I guess it's like there's a certain number of
No, fair.
workarounds that you can have, but if you don't have any,
Yeah.
then you have to probably look somewhere else. So, but you're right that who you work with, the good ones and the bad ones, it probably changes in every organization. But as long as you maintain enough good ones to work with,
Yeah.
I think that's the environment that we're looking for.
Absolutely. John, I have a fourth question.
Okay.
I never said, when I have a prep talk with someone and I never list them on the invite because I just love the reaction. I love it too much. My audience is predominantly made of people that, am I in the right university? Am I in the right college? They just started this job. Was this the right move? Am I doing the right thing? All of those doubts that most people have. If you can give my audience but one advice, top of your head, what will it be?
I think that if you're a new university graduate, you're going out into the marketplace, really, that first job that you take is going to really probably have a lot of impact on where you go in the future. And so, not to take the first job that's offered to you. We talked about not working with the assholes, but
Yeah.
also looking for the job that not necessarily it's the most money but is it going to give you that experience to go to the next level, like for in your career path that you want to do. So an example is if you are interested in going into law or business, don't take a teaching job if it's the first thing that's offered to you, because it's not going to take you in that direction that you necessarily want to go. You might be able to make a left turn, but I would really look at how do you kind of use those experiences to get you to where you want to go eventually. And you have to, that's a lot to look at as a
Yeah.
new graduate, because it's like a lot of times you come out and you think, I'm going to get into the workforce and, start, this is my dream job. I'm going to go after it. I understand it's really frustrating nowadays, just with all the online systems where you have a couple hundred people that apply for the same job. And it's, I think it requires a certain level of patience, to get the right first job. And don't, because once you take a job, your job search stops. And so I think that's probably one of the things is have a little patience, try to find that right job that you think is going to move you in the direction you want to go.
To be honest, I cheated a little bit when I was right out of the university because,
Uh,
yeah, but I'm actually pretty proud of that because uh, I took an internship for 6 months and I agreed to that to do it for free, right?
yeah,
So by the time, and instead of the fourth semester, because a master's degree have 4 semesters, it took place during the fourth semester because my diploma, my project was already done. Everything was done. Just need to take care of the internship. So by the time I got my diploma, I already had 6 months internship in a pretty good company,
right.
and I was way ahead of everybody. So I
Yeah.
cheated a little bit. It's a viable option. It's not like I cheated the system.
No.
It was an actual, but I don't think anybody else did that. Most of them like just writing the project, and I'm like I'm not gonna write the project. It's I already wrote a lot of those, and they really didn't bring you anything. But people looked at me differently.
Mhm.
It was pretty good.
Yeah, I mean that's really smart to do because it gives you as a college student work experience that differentiates you from other candidates, but also probably open the door a little bit to that company. If you were interested in working at that company, instead of being a pool of a couple hundred people, they knew you, and that would certainly at least give you an interview, or instead of just being a resume that they look at for 7 seconds. So
Yeah.
that I would say that type of internship pays dividends even if you don't go work for that company, it gives you experience, but it at least might get you in that door as well.
And I actually learned a lot. Like
Hmm.
at the time when I started my actual job, well, I didn't knew, quite a lot, but I knew pretty well. And I was very well received. So yeah, definitely worked.
Good, good. Yeah. I mean, I think that's one of the things is you, it's difficult to find a good job nowadays. Just
Yeah.
it's all the systems are really to benefit the companies, not the candidates. And so it takes a lot of work and diligence and patience to get that position, as a new graduate. If you don't have connections, I think, one of the things is beyond just applying for jobs, the more opportunities you have to talk to people, and go out and meet people, beyond just college,
Yeah.
you never know what's going to open a door for somebody.
No, absolutely right. And with that said, John, man, you're a font of information. It's just a pleasure talking to you. I really appreciate being with you.
Yeah, Denny, I've really enjoyed our conversation. It's good meeting you.
Likewise. Guys, I hope this one was useful. Please follow the channel on YouTube, Rumble, Twitter, Gap, LinkedIn, and Facebook. Ring the bell and all the good stuff. Have a nice week ahead, and I'll see you next Sunday.